Hi, I'm Lorraine Loria, and I'm the author of Henry Mozzarella and the Case of the Missing Diamonds. Along with my illustrator, Bonnie Spino, we're excited to introduce this book to you and read it to you today. We hope that you can follow along with Henry and Max as they go through the clues and see if they can solve the mystery. The mystery begins. As the warm sun rose on the quiet town of Where's-It, a friendly place where the dirt road ends and the cornfields begin, not all was as it seemed. Today's the first day of the Where's-It County Fair. Everyone was excited. There would be lots of games, there would be lots of prizes, and most of all, there would be lots of fun. The Hen sisters were busy getting themselves ready at the fair. "Do you have our best eggs, Bertie?" asked Laverne. The sisters always had plenty to do with the county fair. There was the egg decorating contest, and everyone knew that Laverne and Bertie laid the biggest eggs. Just then, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver strolled by the hens. They were talking softly to themselves. Laverne heard something strange. "Bertie, did you hear that?" Laverne clutched her bag as she whispered into Bertie's ear. "What did you say, Laverne?" Bertie seemed surprised. "Well, I heard the beavers talking about hidden diamonds. I heard the word bank," Laverne clucked. Hidden diamonds? The thought made Bertie's head bob up and down. She was curious. "This better not be another one of your feather-brained mix-ups. Are you sure?" Bertie asked. "Of course I'm sure," answered Laverne. Laverne didn't think of herself as nosy, but if you wanted to know anything about anyone in the town, she was the one to ask. "This could be a job for the police. I'll call Police Chief Frank." "Well, I'm calling Henry," exclaimed Bertie. "Frank is a clever fox, that's for sure, but those deputies of his, they couldn't find a clue right underneath their noses." Bertie rolled her eyes as she continued. "Besides, Henry and Max are good at following clues." Henry Mozzarella was the town's only private detective. Together with his best friend Max, there wasn't a problem the two couldn't solve. Bertie pulled up her crooked stockings and ran home to call Henry's office. Chapter 2. The Investigation. "Ring, ring! Hello," squeaked a small voice on the other end of the line. "Henry Mozzarella's office. Mrs. Prickles speaking." "It's Bertie, and I'm calling to report stolen diamonds." Mrs. Prickles grabbed her notepad and pen. "Why does the phone always ring during my cookie break?" she thought to herself. "Where did you see these diamonds, Bertie?" "Well, I didn't actually see them." Laverne heard the words bank and hidden diamonds as the beavers were walking. That can't be good. "Oh my, I'll let Henry know right away," said Mrs. Prickles as she eyed her half-eaten cookie. She loved anything sweet and always kept her cookie jar full. "Thank you," said Bertie, clucking as she hung up the phone. "Now let's see, was that diamond stolen from a bank? Oh, what was it? Oh yes, hidden in a cookie jar." Sometimes Mrs. Prickles got things mixed up. Henry and Max were relaxing in the office when Mrs. Prickles brought her note to Henry. He was sitting in his favorite marshmallow chair, eating cheese and reading the weekly paper. The tiny space was filled with old newspapers, detective stories, and the wonderful smell of cheese. Henry felt no one could ever have too much of his favorite food around, so he kept cheese everywhere. There was orange cheese, white cheese, blue cheese, string cheese, cheese with holes, and cheese that no one knows cheese. "What's this, Mrs. Prickles?" The note dropped on his desk as she fixed her moss-covered glasses. "Well, there's been a crime reported, sir. Just read my note and see." Max's eyes grew as wide as saucers. Max was Henry's assistant. He was a faithful friend and great at sniffing out clues. Henry looked at the scribbled lines on the notepad. "Diamonds stolen from a bank and hidden in a cookie jar?" "Max," said Henry, "I believe we need to investigate this further. You know how I love a good mystery." That night, lightning and thunder kept Henry awake as the town of Where's-It saw its first summer storm. How puzzling, thought Henry. Diamonds and Where's-It? This case could be as hard as a nut to crack. Chapter 3. Muddy Footprints and Cookie Jars. Early the next day, Henry and Max headed straight to the town's bank to see Chester Nutt. The busy squirrel was always working. Being a bank president was a big job, and Chester loved counting things. "How are things at the bank, Chester?" asked Henry. "Never been better," said Chester. "See any diamonds lately?" asked Henry. "No, I don't believe so. Are diamonds missing, Henry?" asked Chester. "What we've heard is that some diamonds have gone missing." Henry chose his words carefully. "That's terrible!" exclaimed Chester. Just then Chester looked at his pocket watch. He didn't like being late for anything. It was 10 o'clock on the dot. Time to open the bank. "Do you keep cookies at the bank, Chester?" asked Henry as he looked around. "Yes, I do." Chester ran to get a jar that he kept on his desk. "Here you go, Henry." Chester watched as Henry took a nibble. These cookies taste a bit nutty." "No diamonds here," Henry whispered as he peeked into the jar. "I'll tell you what's nutty is this case. Who ever heard of someone hiding diamonds in a cookie jar?" said Max. "I'll be sure to check the bank for diamonds," said Chester. "If you wouldn't mind, that would be helpful," said Henry. "I'll look in all the places where I keep things safe," replied Chester. With a nod of his head, Henry left Chester to his search. Henry had climbed down the bank's branch. "Do you see those muddy footprints, Max?" asked Henry. He pulled out his magnifying glass to get a closer look. "The footprints lead from the bank. Whose footprints were they? Where did they lead?" Henry wondered. The two noticed more muddy footprints leading to Gertie Goose's house. Thought Henry. "Perhaps these footprints are a clue, Max. We better check it out." When they arrived at Gertie's house, they found Frank, the police chief, and his two favorite deputies, Hank and Gus. "We're taking care of this," said Frank. "Yeah, on the trail our nose won't fail," said Hank and Gus together. "Those goofy hound dogs couldn't find their own tails," Max mumbled to himself. "Well," Henry paused as he turned to talk to Gertie, "I'd like to try one of your cookies. That is, if you don't mind." "Of course, go right ahead," said Gertie. She was proud of her cookies, even if they had an unusual taste. A bit fishy, thought Henry. He looked in the cookie jar while taking a bite of cheese. No diamonds here. Nothing better to cover up something that smells a little fishy than cheese, he thought. Frank said Laverne called him about stolen diamonds. Is that true, Henry? Well, Gertie, we don't have proof. Let's not say anything until we have the facts. Thank you for the cookie. Henry and Max then headed for the door. Just then, Frank stopped Henry. The police of Where's-It will solve this case, Mozzarella. I don't need any help from you and Max. When we're on the trail, our nose won't fail, the hound dogs barked and chased their tails. Max just sighed. Gus was not aware that his long ears had tied themselves into a knot above his head. Once everyone left, Gertie couldn't hold in the news any longer. She burst open the shutters. There's a thief loose in Where's-It, honked Gertie. Watch your house, lock your doors, hide your jewelry, honk, honk. Chapter 4. Flowers, Bees, and Honey. The following morning, Henry and Max started looking for more muddy footprints around town. There's more cookie jars to find and more cookies to taste, said Henry. Max wagged his tail as he followed close behind. The first stop was Rosemary's flower shop. Henry noticed flowers in every color of the rainbow. There were roses that tickle noses, lilies that make you silly, and sunflowers as tall as towers. Wow, these are beautiful flowers, but the floor looks a bit muddy today, said Henry. Everyone's buying flowers for the fair. They have been tracking mud in all morning, complained Rosemary. Are you here because of the thief Gertie keeps honking about? Not to worry, Rosemary. Max and I will find out who's behind this. May I try one of your cookies? Asked Henry. Of course, said the persnickety skunk. Max rushed to taste one too, almost knocking over the pots of roses with his tail. The cookies tasted a little bit like worms. Yuck, yelped Max. Henry wondered why something that looked so good could taste so bad. He was glad he had kept plenty of cheese in his vest pockets for days like these. Just as Henry and Max started to leave, they smelled a terrible odor. Oh no, said Rosemary. It seemed all the talk around town of a thief and where's it made me a bit scared. Everyone knows what happens when a skunk gets scared. Suddenly the air was filled with a stinky, smelly cloud. Sorry, Henry. Sorry, Max. Look at my poor flowers. Henry and Max hurried out the door. Just then Henry remembered that Bee Bear lived on the same street. Better stop by Bee's house since we're here, Max. The town loved Bee's honey, sweetest and wears it. Besides, everyone knew Bee loved jewelry. Hi, Bee. Max and I are here to ask you some questions. Have you lost any diamonds lately? The thought of losing diamonds made Bee a bit nervous. She quickly checked her bumblebee necklace she had put on that day. Perhaps he's a bear who likes jewelry like me, or maybe he's tall, dark, and furry, said Bee. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, said Henry. Do you mind if Max and I try one of your cookies? Sure you can, Henry. Bee opened her cookie jar and handed them both a cookie. They're as sweet as you, Bee, said Henry. No diamonds here, he thought. Whenever Bee worries, she gets a little clumsy. Before she knew it, she tripped and knocked over her jars, spilling golden honey everywhere. Oh no, how many of my jars fell? Asked Bee. Max started counting. 3 fell off the log, 2 are in your hands, and 4 jars are on the ground. Oh yes, 1 behind you fell too. That's 10 jars, said Bee. That's all the honey I had. We better go, said Henry, trying to step carefully around the fallen jars. Max couldn't stop himself from licking the thick golden puddle now surrounding his paws. Yum, yelped Max. It's times like these that I love my job. Looks like all this talk about stolen diamonds has left me with a sticky mess, said Bee. Don't worry, Bee. Max is happy to help clean it up. Chapter 5. Where are the diamonds? Henry followed Max to his house to talk over the clues. This case is leading nowhere, just like the muddy footprints. We haven't found 1 diamond anywhere, Max complained. Nope, we have not, declared Henry. We have no clues, we have no thief, there are no diamonds, just cookies. You know, Max, old friend, it's time we visit the beaver's place. Henry patted his tummy. All this cookie tasting has made my clothes feel a little bit tighter. Just then, a button popped off Henry's jacket. As Max and Henry arrived at the beaver's home, they noticed Frank, Hank, and Gus were already there. On the trail, barked Hank. Our nose won't fail, repeated Gus. Frank nudged both dogs to be quiet. I told you to stay out of this, Mozzarella. Frank was not too happy to see Max and Henry. We followed the clues, said Frank, and there's nothing here. The hound dogs followed the police chief out the door. Well, Beavers, I'm sorry to bother you on such a busy day, said Henry. May I try a cookie, Lily? Seems Max and I have been doing a lot of cookie tasting in the last few days. Why, of course, said Lily. Please take a seat. The furniture always felt a little rough to Henry, but he liked how tidy the place was, not at all like his office. Henry peeked into the cookie jar. He pulled out a cookie that looked a little like a tree. Henry saw no diamonds in the jar, but took a bite of the cookie just to be sure. Said Henry, a different flavor, a bit like pine, he thought. No diamonds here. Well, Max, it looks like another dead end, Henry sighed. Just as he was about to leave, Henry noticed the sun shining on something shiny on the windowsill. Henry's thoughts started to race. Were those the diamonds? Maybe Frank missed them, and Gus and Hank would never notice them. They were too busy bumping into each other. Lily, what's that on the shelf above you? Asked Henry. Oh, Henry, Lily's eyes sparkled as she talked. I've been keeping those for something special. Buck interrupted. Yep, she's been saving her dimes to build another house on the sunny side of the riverbank. Thank you, Beavers. You've been very helpful. Let's go, Max. Chapter 6. The Mystery of the Diamonds Solved. Henry and Max skipped with joy as they left the beaver's house. Max, old boy, everything is starting to make sense. Max's tail wagged swiftly as Henry's eyebrows rose on his face. Time to talk with Laverne and Bertie. Henry pulled out another piece of cheese to nibble on the way. Max and Henry knew just where to find the Hen sisters. When Henry and Max arrived in the hens' home, they could hear the sisters clucking inside. Knock, knock. Henry and Max waited for the door to open. Bertie almost bumped into a lamp as she rushed to open the door. Who's there? Squawked both hens as they peered through the door. It's me, Bertie, said Henry. I have Max here too. We just need to ask you a few questions. Bertie quickly let them in. Why, hello, Henry. Hello, Max. Did you find the diamonds yet? Bertie quickly looked at the sisters. See, Laverne, I told you Henry was the mouse for the job. Well, ladies, Henry spoke slowly, there seems to be a problem with your story. What? What? Clucked Laverne, looking surprised. What? Repeated Bertie, while bending over to pull up her stockings. Seems you didn't hear what you thought you heard, Henry continued. There were no diamonds in the bank. There were no diamonds in the cookie jar. There were no missing diamonds here, there, or anywhere. The diamonds you thought the beavers were talking about were really dimes. And the bank is only a river bank. I bet Mrs. Prickles added the cookie jar to the note because she was taking her cookie break. You know how she gets things mixed up, said Max. Seems you only heard part of what the beavers said, exclaimed Henry. Spreading stories that aren't true sure caused a lot of trouble all over town. Chester spent all day looking for diamonds. Gertie honked so much her honker lost its honk. Rosemary had to get new flowers, and Bee lost 10 jars of honey. Well, I never, said Laverne. She bobbed her head about nervously. I can't believe it, Laverne. Your nosy beak always gets us into trouble. You really laid a rotten egg this time, squawked Bertie. I'm so sorry, Henry, said Bertie. Sorry, Laverne whispered under her breath as she waddled away. The two sisters clucked and squawked as they closed the door. Well, Max, another mystery solved, exclaimed Henry. Yes, it sure is, said Max. Just then, Frank, Hank, and Gus arrived. On the trail, our nose won't fail, the hound dogs howled in unity. The police chief looked at Henry and Max, shaking his head. Once again, they were too late. The mystery of the missing diamonds had already been solved. Case closed. All was quiet again on the streets of Where's-It, a friendly place where the dirt road ends and the cornfields begin. The end. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our book, Henry Mozzarella and the Case of the Missing Diamonds. You can order it at Amazon or Barnes & Noble's, or you can order it directly from us at PiccoloTales.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Piccolo Tales Publications. I sure hope that you enjoy all the stories at the festival today, and make sure that you have lots of fun.